Hey there, I was just loafing around. Welcome to our cooking show. Today we're going to be making bread, everyone's favorite. In a large bowl, you're gonna have to mix the yeast, sugar, and salt together. The reason why we need to do this is because in order to make the bread rise, we're going to use a process called fermentation. So in order for this to happen, you need to make sure that the yeast, which are live organisms, actually have glucose to break down. And the process is that the glucose breaks down into two things: ethanol, which is an alcohol, and carbon dioxide, which is the gas that allows the bread to rise and get that puffy texture that we all like. I put the water and I put the yeast together. We're now going to put the salt and the sugar. And it's very important we have sugar because that's the glucose that the yeast needs to break down into ethanol and carbon dioxide. So basically, all we have to do now is just wait for the yeast to dissolve. Okay. Our yeast has now dissolved, which means that we're ready to put in our flour. So at this point, we've also got some chemistry going on. There are significant amounts of two different types of proteins that actually bond together to create what we know as gluten. So when water is added to the flour, these proteins form a network connected by hydrogen bonds and disulfide links, which creates overall the protein that we know as gluten. And that's what makes flour and water so nice and easy to mold. Obviously, unlike flour in its flour form, once it's been in contact with the water, it's easier to mold and form because of the bonds that are being created, creating the gluten in the flour. What if you're gluten-free? How are you going to be able to recreate this consistency when your body is not able to actually handle the gluten in the dough? A thing called xanthan gum, which is a polysaccharide, meaning a sugar, created by the bacteria Xanthomonas campestris. Huge sugar, which explains the reason why when you add it to water, it thickens the consistency of water. Because it's a hydrophilic molecule, meaning that it's attracted to water. Water creates hydrogen bonds with it. It actually ends up weighing down the water, I guess, which causes it to have that jelly consistency that can replicate what we find in normal flour, gluten. Some breads, instead of using yeast, they use baking powder or baking soda with ascorbic acid, essentially vitamin C. So you can find that in like lemons or limes. So they put the two together because it's an acid-base reaction. So when you have the acid and the base, they neutralize each other, causing the formation of water and, the most important part, carbon dioxide. When the carbon dioxide is produced, it produces the same sort of texture that you find with yeast. The only difference is that this acid-base reaction occurs at a much faster rate than the yeast does. So instead, you get bread with a finer crumb structure instead of having a really soft, doughy bread. So, if the yeast produces carbon dioxide and alcohol, why isn't bread alcoholic? Well, in reality, bread is alcoholic. But the reason why it isn't alcoholic once it's baked is because water has really strong hydrogen bonding, whereas ethanol only has one OH group at the end of the molecule. So since it only has that one OH group, it's not able to produce as many hydrogen bonds as water does. Therefore, its boiling point is a lot lower than water's boiling point. Matter of fact, ethanol's boiling point is 78.37 degrees Celsius, whereas water's is 100. So that also explains why, once bread is baked, there's basically no alcohol in it at all. It only loses 10 to 20% of the water that it initially started with, showing that the hydrogen bonds actually cause the water to stay in the dough more than the ethanol. Why did the baker file for harassment? Because people were commenting on his hot buns. So, as you can see, our little bread bites have browned a little bit. This is called a Maillard reaction, which is a chemical reaction between an amino acid, so the amino acids come from the proteins in the dough, and a reducing sugar, which usually comes from the carbohydrates in the dough. And usually this reaction requires the addition of heat. Formations caused by the Maillard reaction includes the generation of melanoids, which are pigments vary from light yellow to dark brown. To this, flavor and aroma compounds are generated. Also, the reaction causes a process to allow us to more easily digest dough. This just came out of the oven, so it's a little toasty right now, but we're gonna try it with some of Sarajen's beautiful homemade jam here. It's very good. You sure it's very good? Okay, let's try it. That is some good stuff. Wow. Oh my gosh. It's like actual bread.
It's the bread.
I rate 10 out of 10.